The passionate leader. Because leadership without passion is just a title.
Meeting. We got a collapse in the garage. Get the squad back equipment in here. We got an IV gone to a firefighter. It's on island urgent. Transmit a second aloft.
Ask yourself this. Are you paying attention to the signs of burnout in your own life and in your crew? Or are you waiting until someone hits rock bottom before you give them help or you get help yourself? In part 2 of our conversation with Justin Champion, we discussed what it felt like when he hit rock bottom, how he had to claw his way back from the gates of hell, and he's hitting this mental health awareness stuff head on, full speed ahead. Part 2 takes off where part 1 left over. We'll switch gears a little bit and we'll kind of talk about some mental health in the IDLH and stuff like that. So you refer to it as the mental health IDLH. Why don't you kind of run us through your analogy to that and sort of what maybe brought you to it. So let's unpack that can of worms if you want.
Sure. Really, where I came up with that was off of personal experience. Immediate dangers to life and health, right? What worse IDLH environment to be in than in your own head? I've been there. You know what I mean? And when you feel like you're stuck in there all alone and there's nobody coming to get you, it's a bad place to be in. So that's kind of where I went with that. Because that's probably the most dangerous place you can be in if you don't have help. So that's kind of where I went with the mental IDLH is a mayday in your own head is probably way worse than on the fire ground because you're by yourself. I mean, I've been in place. I've been 2:00 in the morning, stuck inside my own head, wondering if I'm going to come out of it, and that's kind of where that was born.
No, that's no. Is it to somebody who is stuck in their head? I mean, what sort of was a way that you were able to break out of that and kind of open your eyes to being open to help and stuff like that? Was it just finally you reached a breaking point, or was it just sort of, again, cumulative stuff?
It was really cumulative stuff. I mean, getting to the point where I was at the end of my rope, like ready just to be done, right? And it was just cumulative. And what got me out of it really was, and I hate to say it, is you got to hit rock bottom. I lost everything. I lost a marriage. I didn't see my kids for a couple of years, and I went from being in a house full of family to sitting in a 1-bedroom apartment by myself. And I just finally was like, hey, I need help. I got to do something. And that's what turned the switch on for me. And I think it was just cumulative from the military and the fire service. And like, it's like wearing a backpack and just throwing rocks in it. You can only carry it for so long, right?
Yeah, your bucket fills up.
Yeah, and I lost everything in my life that meant anything to me. So I hit rock bottom and just decided, hey, I can't do this anymore. Like, what am I doing? And I got to the point where, like, honestly, I was suicidal. I was all that, and I reached out for help to Next Rung, and they picked me up and pointed me in the right direction, did all the legwork for me, and that's where it all started.
Oh, that I think it's the stigma that we still need to break through, and even, I mean, there are a lot of individuals out there that are, pushing it heavy. And God damn, the other day I just I quoted him too and something else. There was a TikToker that I was following, and the simple fact of the matter is if you look at line of duty deaths and deaths of firefighters in general, by and large, we are more likely to die by our own hand than we are, a structural collapse or a training incident.
Yeah.
Or even now, more likely to die at our hands than we are of heart disease, which is, that one, I'm not gonna lie, it shook me a little bit. And I'm like, dude, it sucks because the fire service has lost some really big giants because of suicide. And I think where it hurts from the survivors end of the world is like, man, just say something. But then again, it's like, well, they can't, they or they don't know how, or they didn't think that they could reach out, or they didn't want to portray that, somebody of, such notoriety is, struggling and stuff. So I think um, there are a lot of people that have definitely joined the movement for, mental health awareness, and it's enormous. Um, and there are so many different resources out there. I know our good friend at the Can Report pushes the next rung a lot, and there are even just local clinicians too can
Yes.
help out. But having ones, I mean, I had on my show already, um, Kevin McNeil. He's on a couple episodes ago, and he went through some dark stuff. I mean, he wrote. I mean, I'm still reading it now, but a 300-page plus book that's all of his memoirs of the hell that he had to go through. It's it's a real thing. There's, especially for folks like yourself who, you saw it in the combat fields and now you're going to see it in the fire grounds. If you don't do things to offload it, it's what. So I did talk. The episode it will have aired by the time that this is published. Um, our guest we talked with, him and I kind of had the conversation of forced critical incident stress debriefing if there's a bad call. Are you for or against making it mandatory for somebody to go get help? So let's just say, you have a bad call, a fatal car accident or something. Um, I so that, we have like our, your group huddles or the critical incident stress debriefings after. Um, I was a proponent for mandatory attendance in those. However, during the episode, I had my eyes open. So, to that, would you be more for or against having, a mandatory requirement to attend a critical incident stress debriefing after a bad call?
I don't think that a mandatory critical incident management thing is a great idea because forcing people to talk is never a good therapeutic situation, right? Um, and I've been in those situations where they force me to talk, and you sit there and you let them do their thing and talk to you and tell you, okay, you're going to be okay, blah 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 blah, right? I don't believe in it. What I think we need in the fire service is more proactive approach instead of a reactive approach to mental health. We pull hoses every day, we do all these great and wonderful things, but why aren't we putting that into our academies? Why aren't we training on mental resiliency or open conversations to where it's okay to talk about it? I think that CISM has fell short. Um, I think peer support groups are great, but we can improve on those. Instead of having, because I was a peer support member, and they say respond within 72 hours. Well, why don't we, as a peer support group, start working on some proactive stuff and start talking to guys in the academy and make it part of our monthly, weekly, daily training to start getting these guys prepared for some of the stuff that they might see and giving them that those tools that they need to be prepared for that and be able to respond to that and places they can go if they need to talk and really just get rid of the stigma. And especially as leaders, if I'm not okay, I'm going to tell somebody I'm not okay, even if it's my whole crew. I'm not all right. I'm going to counseling. Because then that younger guy that just came out of the academy is going to say, well, dang, if Cap can do it, I can do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
And that's where we've got to start being more proactive and implementing programs into our departments to to prepare our guys just like we prepare them for the fire ground.
I love it. How would you go about implementing it? Just kind of roll it mixed in with a training, or would you kind of sort of make it more of a leisurely, sort of a bumper talk and stuff like that?
I think you approach it both ways. You implement it into your training program and into your academy. Even if you start out small with like a 4 or 5 hour block on mental health resiliency and things that we
Mm,
can do if we get into a bad situation, and teach these young guys that are coming up that it's okay. Because right off the bat, you start doing that, you're you're setting a precedence that it's okay to talk about it, right? The, the stigma goes away. And then on the flip side, you're sitting out there in the back of the bay with your crew. Have talks with them. Have those tough talks. Or if you notice a guy's just not, he's kind of off, pull him to the side, put your arm around him. Hey, man, you're a little off. What's going on? You know what I mean? Make it normal. Make it normal. Shoot around, sit around, shoot the shit in the back of the bay and talk about it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, I think you do it both ways.
I like it. No, I think one of the things where we all is the is signs that we may have missed. You know, like, oh, you know, so if you and I work together every day, I'm gonna be like, man, Justin's off today, right? Like something just seems off. But I wonder if, or what I'd love to see a lot of times is a way to break into our criteria, ways to see like your typical, and granted, yes, things are going to manifest differently in everybody. So you know what, something that might bother me might not bother you, or you know, even if it does bother us both, you're going to portray it far, you know, I may portray it in some dank ass dark humor, which is going to be funny because I get some good funnies, but and you may portray it in more of a, you know, of more of an, you know, a withdrawal, or you know, anger, or whatever the case is. But I think sometimes just sort of shooting it out there, like, hey guys, these are some of the symptoms that you can watch out for if you know, if you're seeing something among, you know, amongst your brothers or sisters that may be an indicator that they're struggling, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, there's that's and that'd be part of the training, right? Throw out some of those red flags that might pop up. Or like you said, really get to know your people and get to know the people you work with. I mean, we spend the majority of our life with the guys in the firehouse more than we spend with our families. You know them. You know
Yeah.
what's going on, or
Yep.
something's off, like you said, and start training these guys that are coming in on red flags to look for. You know, is somebody all of a sudden that's a real laid back kind of person? All of a sudden, are they angry over everything? Are they
Right.
now
Right.
drink? Or now are they drinking all the time? Are they coming in late to work? Are they not wanting to train? Little things can add up, and little things are red flags, and that's when you got to start those talks, those hard conversations.
Yeah. No. Good. Great stuff. And you know, and if you guys didn't hear how to have our conversation, rewind the view back a little bit because we talked about that earlier. Um, So kind of keeping along the mental health stuff, and one thing that I definitely think happens a lot in the fire service, and I think everybody does, and that's burnout. I think we all can sometimes take a bigger bite of the apple than we should have, and all of a sudden, like, case in point, I share the exact same problem that you do. The fire service did cost me a marriage. You know, there were other extenuating circumstances that played into it, but I did lose. You know, because of my overcommitment to the fire service, I think it put a strain on my marriage, my first marriage. I've since remarried, and life is good, but it still cost me, you know, time with the kids, because that's where my first marriage is where the kids come from. Um, so there's a cost, and I always have, I've always told our guys, you know, especially on the phone, because I'm a combination department, so there's a few of us that are full time and more of us that are combination guys. And so the combination guys are like, yeah, I'm going to try to make it back. And we have, you know, we'll just say Luke has soccer, and I'm going to try to get done from his soccer. If I leave early, I'm going to be able to get to the station for training. And immediately I'm like, dude, you're not coming to training tonight. Like, you stay at your boy's soccer, because he's only going to be you and I talked about it through social media the other day. You know, we only have so much time with our kids when they're young. So you know, I'm like, you stay at your boy's ball game. I don't even care if it's practice. Um, because at the end of the day, especially more specifically for our combination members, this place is not going to pay the bills for our guys. Yes, they do get paid for their time for trainings and calls, but they'll be lucky to gross $1,000 a year. So this is not keeping your lights on. This is maybe giving you a little bit extra gas you know, every month, but it's not going to be here. Um, you know, the fire service will continue on after you leave. Your loved ones won't be able to, because you're going to leave a void. So spend time with them, and make sure that you understand that this place will have your job posted way quicker than your obituary will be posted if you happen to die tomorrow. So spend the time with your loved ones. And I say that to not even just our call guys, any career firefighter that's out there. The fire service is so damn amazing. There's no job or industry in the world that is as awesome to work for and be part of, but it will leave you in its dust at a moment's notice if you're not careful. So always make sure that your priorities lay within your family and your personal and your faith, everything, because the service will and does um, eat you up and spit you out. So one of the things, obviously, to help kind of go through that is with firefighter burnout. So what are some red flags that a firefighter might be burning out or slipping into a dangerous headspace?
things like, just when you get into that burnout phase, you're going to get to the point where you're irritable, you're angry, like you're taking stuff out on the guys around you that you normally wouldn't do. Um, Speaking from experience, because like I used to put everything into the job. Like I was that guy that was taking overtime anytime it was available, not just for the money, but because I loved the job and I wanted to be there. But like you said, we're replaceable to our departments. We're irreplaceable to our family. As far as red flags, those were the biggest ones for me. I was angry, I was irritable. Instead of hanging out with the crew, I would go into my room. I'm on my fourth or fifth day working.
Mm,
I'm not the same, bushy tailed guy I was on day one. You know what I mean? And that'll bleed over into every part of your life. You'll get home and because I'm not just talking about red flags at the station. You'll get home and you'll be the same way with your family. You're gonna bleed
yeah.
over onto them with the anger and the irritability, and your kids are gonna say, "Hey, let's go play, Dad. I don't feel like it right now. I need some rest or whatever." And that's where those signs of burnout are coming. They're right there in front of you, and you have to be able to look in the mirror and be like, "Hey, I need to take a step back." And I was terrible at that, and that's part of the reason why I went through some of the things I went through. And you sometimes you have to recognize the red flags in yourself,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yep.
not just as not just as a brother or sister, but if you do notice those, you got to say something to those guys, like, "Hey, why don't you take a couple days off?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll,
Yeah.
we'll be okay here.
Mm. It's unfortunate again because it all boils back to sometimes people don't, when we get too deep and we're past the point of no return, so to speak, when it comes to burnout. Sometimes, and whether it just be something, I found so far a lot of people that I've met in the fire service, they really appreciate a longer commute home because sometimes that helps them sort of shed the stress or transition from firefighter to dad and husband versus you know me. I have a 5-minute ride, but I also am very firm and firm believer of, in fact, I got my work phone upstairs on the kitchen table, it's off and it's not getting turned back on until Tuesday because I'm off this weekend. um and it's just that's how it works. I mean, my pager will stay on if there's a fire. Okay, maybe whatever the case is, but I have learned. I paid the ultimate sacrifice, yourself as well. Again, we just talked about it. The ultimate sacrifice, as far as losing a family, losing time with your kids, that you cannot get that back. And by the Christ, I'm not going to let the agency take it from me again. So that's, if there's anything from our viewers that I hope that they take is to recognize those signs of burnout. And in order to be, you know, eaten up by the job, you got to make sure that there's still parts of you that are consumable to be eaten up. So be rested up and all of that stuff. I think that's, that's kind of,
Yeah, and,
that's
like
a good point.
you can't give 95% of yourself at the job and then come home and only give your family 5%. I've been there, I've done that,
Mm,
and it doesn't work out. And your kids are going to remember how dad was when he got home.
yeah.
So I don't care. For me, when I get home, even if it's just taking a second in the truck, putting that dad hat on, and when I walk in, no matter how tired I am, if my kids come and say, "Hey, let's go do this, Dad," I'm going to go do it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because
Yep.
I'm gonna give them more than I give the fire service, because they you want to talk about burnout. Try being a fire wife or a fire kid. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah.
That they get burnt out too.
I firmly will stand by this one too. One of the areas where we are awful in the fire service is not necessarily just welcoming our members' loved ones in, but educating them on what to expect and what to miss out on and what to not have as readily available with their loved one now being in the fire service. I think the National Volunteer Fire Council did finally put a book. I shouldn't say a book, but more of like a it is a book in form, but it's more of an educational booklet, so to speak, that sort of walks the spouses and children through what it's like if mom or dad are a firefighter and what to expect of you know moments notice stuff and stuff like that. And I think um, we service wide have been really bad about informing what our loved ones are, or what our loved ones are to expect and what they're gonna, and stuff, and all that. I mean, and sometimes, um, just by nature of being married to us, we can offload. If we see a bad call, we might not even think about it. Like, yeah, it was a an 8-year-old kid, and he was hit by a truck, and his bike was, and they're going to be exposed to some of the same traumatic stuff that we are without even ever stepping foot on the scene. They're just, sometimes we just verbally diarrhea, and they're like, oh my god, you just saw that. Now they're trying to now they're envisioning it in their own mind as far as what we did, and now it's almost like secondhand smoke, for traumatic
Yeah.
calls.
Yeah.
um and in my episode with Kevin, we talked about when he was going through his stuff with his employer, and he had to go get help. I was like, what was there for the spouse, because obviously they deal with the stuff at the house too, and his quick answer was nothing. And that's another area that, and this is more of a call to action for anybody that's pushing heavy on the mental health awareness in the fire service, is don't forget about those loved ones, the kids at home and the spouses that, if we're struggling with PTSD, they're going to have some form of counseling that needs to be in. I know for certain that, if you have, just in the civilian end of the world, if you have a suicidal family member, they generally will bring, family members in for counseling themselves, so they kind of know where they are. But I'm wondering if sometimes in the fire service we need to do the same damn thing for our counterparts at home, because we're not we're not necessarily as all inclusive, I think, sometimes as we want to be, or we expect to believe that we are.
No, and
Um,
I agree. I think that, and speaking from experience, um, our PTSD problems, our issues, they bleed over to our family. They get the brunt of everything
mhm.
that we see or that we're dealing with on our own head, and they don't have the same help that we have. And what I'm trying to do to help with that is, even I do a mental health lecture, the mental ideation. I invite the firefighters to bring their family members, their
Mm.
wives, whatever, so we can talk about those kind of things, and get them some help too, because they catch the brunt of it, man. Like, there's no doubt about it, and that's why there is higher divorce rates and stuff like that, because we bleed onto them from the wounds that we're getting.
Yeah, they are the absolute, the victim of abuse, so to speak, from our PTSD. It's incredibly true. No, I love it. Um, so we'll change subjects just a little bit, to your book. So, um, you are a published author, so kind of, and this is more of a selfish reason, to kind of walk me through the process, as far as from the process of knowing you wanted to write a book. So going from, pen to paper, which obviously there's no such thing as pen to paper anymore. It's hands to keyboard, but I haven't figured out what the cool little phrase is. So we're going to still call it pen to paper. So from brain to pen to paper to publish, what was what was the catalyst for the process, and what sort of was the driving factor, and how you got it done, and all of that stuff.
Mine, honestly, mine was pen to paper over many years.
All right, I like it.
What And I didn't even start out as wanting to write a book. I go to a lot of conferences, I do a lot of training, and I've always taken notes on things that I wanted to do, or we go to a fire and I take notes on what we could have done better or what we could have trained on better. And I've got all these things written down, right? And one day I was telling my wife about, how why aren't we doing it like this, and why don't these guys know this and that? And I was just like, I got it all written down right here. And she's like, well, why don't you put it out there? And I was like, I never really thought about that. So, um, I don't know. And at that point, I knew nothing about writing or even how to do a book.
Sure,
So,
sure.
I called a few people, and I just decided that I was just going to keep it raw. And the book really is kind of just, it almost flows like a notebook. Like,
Okay,
it
sure.
breaks it down for different things that I've learned from other people. A lot of it's not even mine. Some of it's mine,
Yeah, of
um,
course.
things I've learned from conferences. And I felt that I needed, and it's a small book. It's just little tidbits that I wish I would have known when I was a young firefighter, on how to do, VES, or how to pull a hose, different hose loads, stuff like that. And I just decided I'm going to put it all in the book. I didn't get a professional um, person to help me format it or anything. I just kept it kind of like a notebook because that's how I wanted it to be.
Mm,
So I published it myself. I put it out there, and I've gotten a few bites here and there, and I've gotten some good feedback from guys that have bought it and said, "Yeah, this is cool. I can look stuff up real quick and say, hey, let's try this." You know what I mean? So that was my goal. It was never to get rich. It was just to put something out there
sure.
that I could be proud of and that I wish I would have had.
It's what I like about the concept is you're sharing what's referred to as institutional knowledge, stuff that will, if not written down and shared, will pass with you when the Lord calls you home. So when you start to share stuff like that, I in Rick Lasky's Pride and Ownership book, he talks about how he has the senior guys sort of write like the things I wish I knew, and that's how they start like their succession planning within the department. And I got to tell you, what an amazing idea, because there are so many things that have passed with recent retirees, and they when they pass away, all that knowledge goes, and if it's not shared, it's gone. And I mean, it's no different than if you think about how like one guy at the firehouse might have the answer to, hey, so where do we keep this tool, or why do we do this, or where do we send our trucks for repair? It's keeping a log like that. So and books don't have to be 1,000 pages long. In me, I have a 2 letter, so I have a longer letter first name, but JP is a short enough name because mom and dad, I think, knew before I was born that I was going to be a child with a very short attention span, a really short memory. So I mean, honestly and truthfully, sometimes I'd much rather read, stuff that's more like just, notes that are sort of, you know, put on paper versus, um, long, dissertation based novels and stuff like that. So I mean, it's admirable. I think, I think, I forget what platform talks about it a lot, but they talk about, doing daily journals and sort of taking notes. And it's something that I'm still getting better at doing myself. But, it's one of those, when the grandkids are older, like, what's this old leather bound book here that, that whatever they decide to call me, whether it's Gramps or Grampy, or I don't really care. Excuse me. But, they can kind of go through and be like, oh my gosh, on the 12th of July in 2025, it looks like they had a building fire and it was a room and contents. And looks like our grandfather was on the nozzle, and he was excited because it was, it was his first fire in a really long time, or, just stuff like that. Or, like right now it's going to have a lot of stuff of how I worked and, my way in through to the platform based on, the trials and tribulations of trying to promote in with different agencies and learning how to refine my skills and all of that stuff. So but that's the same idea, right? So it's journaling. It's putting, hey, tank to pump. If you want to get water from your tank, out your hose. You know what I mean? And it is, or, case, engine 6 it's real finicky, be real easy on that ball valve because she opens up real hard and you're going to get a water hammer. It's going to blow apart. Or, when you shift it from pump to road, make sure you wait a couple of seconds because it really has it spins wicked long, or, whatever the case is. And it's all of that stuff that if it's not jotted down. And great book. I love the book idea, honestly. Time frame wise, I mean, how roughly how long did it kind of sort of take, when you finally were given the nudge that you needed from the missus to get the process started? How long was it
Oh,
from?
probably I'd say probably 6 months.
Oh, it's not too bad. I like that.
Yeah, not too bad because I mean I'd been keeping notes and everything since I was a backseat firefighter, and
Sure.
notes from everything from, and that's another thing. Like, you go to conferences, but how often do we bring anything? We say we're going to bring it back, but do we really bring it back?
Mm,
And that's kind of what I wanted to do, was write these things down that I've learned from things like Oath Keepers Fire Conference, the places I went to, FDIC, all these other conferences I go to around the country. I was like, I'm going to take some of these tidbits and put them in there, also with things that, even as a backseat firefighter, like, there's things in there that I would write, like, okay, this didn't work, let's try this. You know what I mean?
sure. Yep.
And then there's little tidbits like that, or and I it years of like just little jotting down notes, and then it took me about 6 months to put everything together where it kind of flowed a little bit and still had
Mhm.
that kind of raw notebook kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
And then I just went ahead and did it.
That's if for the listeners and viewers, if they want to get themselves a copy of it, where can they get it from?
On Amazon.com. Just
Perfect. Okay.
look up, yeah, pretty
And
easy.
yeah, I did not reference the name. So what is the name of the book?
Uh, no BS fire training tidbits for them.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. Is BS abbreviated or did you spell it out?
It's yeah, no BS training tips, and then for them.
It's the PC rated one, so you can put it on
Yeah,
bookshelves,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's great. So, um, so let's switch another gear because I love grinding gear, grabbing gears and moving the truck through the show. From the Ashes 505 has a powerful name. What's the story behind it, and what do you want firefighters to take away from your work with it?
For me, from the ashes just kind of came about. It's just about rising stronger from trauma, failure, and hardships in your life, both personal and in the fire service. And I was just sitting around one day and decided that that's kind of like how I felt, and it's not about how we fall; it's about how we rise. So that's kind
Hmm.
of where from the ashes came from. And I think that anybody out there that's feeling how I felt, there is a better day coming, and that's kind of what we're pushing it from the ashes that and trying to help guys get there.
I love it. And so for those that might be curious like I was, and I asked this question before we recorded, but the 505 is the area code to where Justin's at. So that's what the homage is. Which I love. I love cool little names like that have like a little callback to important things, in it. That's good stuff. That's really cool stuff. How long is it, have you kind of been running with from the ashes? Is it relatively recent or has it been going for a little bit now?
It's relatively recent. I've only been launching stuff for about 6 months. I'm still getting my feet under me, but hopefully bigger and better things are coming, and we can help some people.
Dude, same. So the Passionate Leader Facebook page has been out for a little over a year. TikTok, 3 months, in the podcast about that much as well. It is crazy how quick things can take off. So it's um, there's a whole discussion to be had about what it's like to start launching a social media and influencer movement and stuff like that because there's you can take off real fast if you're not careful you'll be light years ahead of where you thought you'd ever be, which is and it's so fun. Um, so if you could fix one cultural issue in the fire service tomorrow, what would it be?
Without a doubt, the stigma on mental health. Without a doubt. Without a doubt, I would change the culture to make it okay to not be okay. Just not stay there.
I like it. No, I think that's a good one. And I think one more question before my traditional sign off question. But um, actually, it might have already done it to me. I'm working on two different screens here, so that actually throws my um. So we talked about a ton of stuff on the show. So we'll kind of wrap things up for the episode. Talked about a ton of everything that we talked about. And I think we may have just alluded to it anyways, but this is how I end all my shows, so we're going with it, dude. Everything from the show that we talked about, from the book to from the ashes to your time at war and mental health awareness and stuff like that. If the listener can only take away one thing, what do you hope that it is?
That in the fire service and in life, that it's okay not to be okay sometimes, but just don't stay there.
I absolutely love it, guy. I love, and what I love the most, man, are the short answers. It's not, you don't need the answers, just stick with them. So that's good stuff. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you wanted to add to this show or anything you wanted to bring up or anything like that?
No, I just appreciate you having me on. Hopefully we can sit down
Yeah.
again sometime.
Yeah, and so for those that are listening now, Justin has now earned himself a lifetime ticket to our Sunday kitchen table talks that'll air live at 8 o'clock Eastern time on TikTok. It is a kitchen table talk that is between myself and any guest that is on the podcast is able to, I let them into the thing, and we don't necessarily talk about specific topics. We have a spinning wheel of hot topics is what we do, and whatever it lands on, we kind of go with it. Last week we had one, and we're going to continue to do it every week, with the exception of holiday weekends. We sort of kind of take a break from the holiday weekends, so give people time with either themselves or their families, or sometimes their shift. But guys, without further ado, this is JP with The Passionate Leader. Our guest today was Justin Champion, out from the New Mexico world. He is the owner and operator from the Ashes. He has fought for our country and our freedom. He has written a book. He's a very big advocate for mental health awareness, and he has dropped some serious knowledge for us. I thank everybody for spending their time with us today in The Passionate Leader. If something today hit home, you can't just sit with it. You have to share it. Better yet, you have to act on it. Be the kind of leader someone else is praying for. And no matter what comes your way, remember this: lead with passion, serve with humility, and leave no place for bottom feeders. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay safe.